Welcome back to Miller's Construction. This particular video is kind of going to be like a two-part. We're going to show you how to texture, how we shoot knockdown texture on ceilings, but we're also going to show you this new Graco texture hopper. This one's a little bit different. What makes it different than a standard hopper is the hopper is air assisted, so it's pressurized. So you can see this little tube here. We've got air coming up into the hopper, helping to force that mud out the gun. Traditional hoppers, they're gravity fed, so the mud just falls down, hits a stream of air, and the air shoots it onto the surface. This one actually has some force or some pressure behind it, so a little bit different. So we'll go over all the specs and features of this thing the best we can. I'm seeing that we've got some adjustment knobs here. I haven't really read the instructions. We're just going to figure it out as we go. I like that the lid clamps on. I like that it has a lid, unlike a traditional hopper where if you overfill it, you can kind of dump a little bit in tight situations. But we're going to go over real quick how we spray. We spray a little bit differently than most guys. I'm very particular on how we texture. So first, let's talk about this space. We've got this nice coffered ceiling here, and you might notice that we have already primed this bare drywall, okay? The reason that we primed the bare drywall is pretty simple. We do not like that porosity difference between joint compound and paper. So anytime you're spraying texture, there's a porosity difference. The mud's going to dry a little bit faster in one area than the other. In other words, when we're shooting texture on this surface, the texture that's sprayed on a joint or a seam or a butt, anywhere there's joint compound, it's going to dry just a hair bit faster than the texture you sprayed on the paper. When you come back and knock it down, it's not going to knock down quite the same because it's already a little bit drier in one area than the other. Is this necessary? Absolutely not. Most drywall contractors do not do this. They're going to say this is a waste of time. I'm very picky on the way my texture looks, and I can't stand walking into a house that's been textured and I can see every single seam, especially on high ceilings. Why? Because I can see the difference in the texture. I can't actually see the seam, I can see the difference in the texture, and it drives me nuts. So we prime it. That's one extra step. It takes very little time, very little expense, just cheap PVA drywall primer. We have now sealed the porosity difference. So there's no difference in porosity across the entire ceiling. So everywhere we shoot, it's going to dry exactly the same. So we do have some skylights up here and some sky windows. We've got them covered up because we don't want to shoot mud all up on the windows. We don't have to clean that up. When it comes to shooting with a hopper, I like to set up a couple of test pieces. So you'll see over here, we've got a couple of test pieces of drywall. We'll show you here in a little bit. When we get this thing running, I'm going to be testing. We'll probably be scraping some mud off, shooting a little bit of mud on, scraping it back off. I want to get as perfect of a texture consistency as I can. I like a small knockdown, really small texture. I don't like big flat spots, okay? Talk a little bit about our joint compound itself. So anytime you're mudding sheetrock, you know, we've got a lot of different types of joint compound. We've got quick setting joint compound, we've got all-purpose compound, we've got lightweight, and then we've got ultra lightweight, which is what we see here with this neon green lid. We like to use the lightest weight compound for texture that we can. That's less weight that I'm having to hold inside this hopper. So less fatigue, it won't wear you out as quickly because it's lighter weight and it's not structural, it's just texture. So when they came out with this ultra lightweight stuff, it was just awesome for us. So we like to use the ultra lightweight. Now here's a little tip for you if you've never sprayed texture before. I like to go ahead and mix up the mud days before I start texturing. The reason for that is these buckets of mud will come with they can come with some dry spots in them. Those little dried pieces of joint compound can fall down into your mud, and then you're shooting them out of your hopper onto the ceiling. So some of those little dried joint compound particles can fall down into your mud when you're mixing. And if you just jump right into spraying, those little dry chunks can get in there. You're shooting that onto the surface, then you're knocking it down. It can really mess things up. You'll have little chunks in your texture. It's a quality control issue for me. I like to mix the mud days before so that those little chunks can have a chance to dissolve, because this is super wet. Now let's talk a little bit about consistency real quick. You basically want pancake batter. Let me mix this just a little bit so you can kind of see it's rather thin, okay? Now I'm going to lift this out. You can see how thin that is. It's about like pancake batter, okay? That's what we want to see. I've got this bucket, and then I've got this bucket here. I'm going to mix this up. These have both been sitting for maybe 3 days, something like that, okay? So when they sit like that, we need to go ahead and remix them the day we're spraying, okay? Now basically what I did was, I took about half of this ultralight weight mud and dipped it into this specific bucket that already had a little bit of mud in it. And then I filled both up with quite a bit of water and started mixing them. How do I know that this bucket is the same consistency as this bucket? That can matter. That can throw everything off if they're slightly different. So what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing and matching. Now that I've got those two mixed up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bucket and I'm going to pour some right in there, just like so. Now I'm going to give that a real light mix. Basically, we want to achieve evenness. We want these to be even. We want the consistency to be exactly the same. I'm going to dump it back in, nice and full. And now I'm going to mix that one up. This is how you achieve an even viscosity. All right. Now I'll take a little bit of this and just for weight distribution, pour it in there. We're good to go. Those two should be about even as we can get them, right? All right, we'll talk about air for just a minute. We've got a massive compressor downstairs that we're plugged up to. It's a shop compressor, stationary, but really the point is you need to have a very large compressor to do this. You're going to be using a ton of air, so I recommend nothing less than a 20-gallon tank on the compressor. So you want anywhere from 4 to 10 CFM, something like that. I think the one that we've been spraying with is 5, 6 CFM, something like that. That's fine. As long as you've got a 20-gallon tank and about 4, 5, 6 CFM, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to shoot with this. But the expansion tank is critical. You get a little bit more consistency with that expansion tank. Long hoses are good, just more volume. You're shooting out a lot of volume of air, okay? So we've got some nice hoses here. I think we're just about ready to start. Oh, you know what? I forgot something that I was going to do. This is something that we've done in the past that works out pretty well typically. We're going to try it on this one as well. This is just straight up chalk, okay? This is red chalk. So we're going to dump a little bit of that in here. Why am I doing this? Why do we need a little bit of red chalk in there? Well, I'll tell you, it's difficult to see what you're doing when you're spraying white texture on a white surface. So I'm not saying we do this every time, but we do it once in a while. You can see the color of the mud changing. See how it's turning pink? Pepto-Bismol, baby. Watch this one. get in real close on this. Let's mix this up. See that chalk right there? All right, so check out that mud now. Now we've got that nice Pepto-Bismol pink color. We're mixed up pretty good. Now, because it's a different color, I'm gonna be able to see exactly where I'm shooting on this white surface. So it's cheap, it just helps me see a little bit better. All right, let's go ahead and get set up to shoot on our test samples, okay? All right, so just reading up a little bit of this on the instructions. I'm not too proud not to read instructions. This is interesting. So just like a standard hopper, we've got different size tips, which is kind of nice. This is a number 9 over here, and this is a number 8 here. Maybe this is a 6. You know what? I bet that's a 6, and that's an 8. Yeah, that's a 6, obviously, smaller diameter. So I think we've got, did we have a 9 in here? We got a number 4. Okay. So they send you this little baggie of additional items, but anyways, we're gonna up it to an 8 because this is more for an orange peel. We want a knockdown. So go ahead and put that number 6 down, and we're gonna seat this on there. I'm gonna pull the trigger a little bit, and here's our cap. So just reading the instructions a little bit, we'll run you through some of this. So first thing that we had to do was turn the hopper around. We want the hopper tilted to the front. They say tilted to the back is for floor application, and it'll help empty the hopper better. But if you turn it around, not the way it comes stock, that's for ceiling application, and it helps empty better. So that's a nice thing. So all we had to do was loosen this band, lift the hopper off, turn it 180 degrees, and then tighten the band back up. So no big deal there. That was easy. Now let me walk you through some controls here. If you're used to an HVLP sprayer, this should be pretty standard for you. This is our air setting. So this is kind of nice. We don't have a regulator going on anywhere right now. We're just going to adjust the air right here. So clockwise, it's shut off all the way right now. Counterclockwise, we're allowing additional air to come in. So you can set your air quick and easy right there. Now we've got our needle, just like on an HVLP. I believe that the more you crank it out, the more it's going to decrease. I think that's a misprint. I think that's a misprint in the instructions, because every HVLP that I have ever dealt with, yeah, see, I'm getting less trigger. The more I'm screwing this in clockwise, the less I'm able to pull it. So this is our needle adjustment. I know that's the way this works. I think the instructions are wrong on that. As I go counterclockwise here, I'm able to pull the trigger more. I'm gonna let more material flow through. Now, this is what's really cool. This is our air adjustment to the hopper. So you can see we've got some colors here. You just lift up on this knob, and we've got a nice arrow here. We can put it to more or less air. I think that's the way that works. So kind of cool. That's gonna regulate the amount of air into the actual hopper. So kind of cool. Another quick tip, if you're not gonna read the instructions tell us to disconnect the air before we take the lid off. And that makes sense to me. So this is just different than most typical hoppers that we've used in the past. You can see right here, here's a picture of the hopper that we're used to running, but now we've gone pressurized. So we've got a lid on this thing. All right, go ahead and pour me some in there, Chase. Yep, very nice. Keep rolling. I'll tell you when, okay? Keep going, keep going. Yep, give me some more. Keep rolling. And that's good for now. Yep, good enough. All right. All right, so probably should have read the instructions a little better on this. Our color coding. I thought red would put more air into the hopper, but green is actually the most amount of air that you can pressurize the hopper with. So we're gonna give this a shot here. I can already tell I'm really gonna like this thing. I'm gonna give it a little bit of air here. That's a little too much for my, that might be about right. All right, let's give this a shot, folks. Whoa, way too much air. Wow, okay. So I'm putting too much air into the hopper. I'm gonna back that down to orange here. Still too much air. I don't know that I want any air in there. Now we're getting somewhere, folks. A little less. We just got to dial this in, okay? Okay, so it's taken me a bit to figure this thing out. I've got my air set about perfect. I got my needle set about perfect. And I've got the pressurization inside the hopper set really nice. From a guy that's went from a standard hopper to this, night and day difference. This pressurized system, huge difference, excuse me. I'm already out of mud, so I'm gonna have to get some more mud going here. All right, so I got her filled back up. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and knock that down. Let me show you how to knock it down, see if I can tilt this up here for a second. Your blade has a curvature to it. I wanna make sure I wipe this off. Your blade's got a curvature to it. I mark it with my name, Aaron Miller, so I know that this side goes against the wall. This is a Marshalltown Knockdown knife. I really like it. I've had it for quite a while now. And you can see I'm half lapping. I'm going over my laps halfway on my blade there, making sure that I knock every bit of it down. The worst thing in the world is not knocking it down and coming back later and realizing you missed a spot. So how do you prevent that? You half lap it, okay? There we go, that's got that section done, looking good. You can see why I put the chalk in there. Right here I've got a little bit of a situation. Got some splatter, just knock it down real quick. All right, we're good to go. We're gonna keep running this. This is where it comes in handy if you've got a second man, one that's not holding the camera. We can be knocking down. What you want to do is you want to keep your knife at a really nice angle. I don't want much more than the tip of the blade touching the surface. I also want to perform a half lap to make sure that I get all of it. You'll see that I keep wiping the blade. I wipe the blade to clean the blade because I don't want any straight sections of bare mud on our nice, freshly textured surface. And if you don't wipe it, you're probably going to get some of those. That's just part of it. You just got to wipe it, okay? Wipe, wipe, wipe. Go back, half lap. And wipe it again, half lap. It's a rinse and repeat situation is what it is. Not really worried about the amount of pressure that I'm putting on it. I want this stuff to be knocked down flat as a pancake, okay? So I'm not worried about pressure, but I am worried about the angle of the knife. I don't want a big portion of that knife touching the surface. That's it. All right. Here we are. It's the next day. We're back on site and all of our texture is nice and dry and looking really good. Are we ready for primer? What's it look like here? Are we ready for primer? No, no, no. Don't skip this next step I'm about to show you. Let me grab my tool here. Let me show you the next step. Let's see if I can get this camera to focus in. You see that little chunk right there? Those can come off of the blade of your knife. They're going to be in random spots, potentially all over the place. So what do? I take the additional 5 minutes time. It's gone. See that? Now, isn't that nice? All you have to do is do not put any pressure. Very lightly skim the entire surface, just real quick and easy. You want to knock off all those giblets. That's what I call them. Little giblets, knock them all off. When that is done, then you are ready for primer. All right, now we're sanded up and now we're ready for primer and I got dust all over me. Just a light skimming will do that. So doesn't take but a few minutes. Now we can get into our primer. All right, so we're just using a standard PVA primer, real inexpensive, and a 1/2-inch nap roller, 18-inch long. That way I can cover a lot of territory. Now I did post a video of this process on Instagram and the trolls came out like crazy telling me that the painter was going to hate me for putting chalk in that texture. It's kind of funny, ain't it? I'm not seeing another painter around. I guess they didn't know that I was the painter. And also, I don't think this cheap PVA primer is having too much of a problem covering that chalky texture. So Friends, don't be worried about that. Don't listen to the people that don't know what they're talking about. We've been doing it this way for years, never had an issue. This particular primer has 0 stain blocking ability, and it's covering it just fine. So we'll get this PVA coat on, and then we'll switch into our top coat. All right, guys, I really hope that you learned something from this video. As you can see, our nice condition space now has got a couple of top coats of paint on it, 1 coat of PVA primer right over that bare texture, and then 2 top coats, and it turned out beautifully. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment down below. As far as that Graco pressurized hopper goes, I really like the thing. Is it worth it for you over a standard hopper? It depends on what you're doing. If you're only going to do 1 or 2 texture jobs and be done, probably not the thing to buy. But if you're going to do a couple of texture jobs a year like we do, man, it's so worth it. It just I was able to consistently keep my pattern, you know, a lot more consistent, but I was also able to spray it a little bit faster too. Something about pressurizing that hopper, it just atomized that mud out of the tip a lot better. It was more consistent. So really like the thing, highly recommend it. Yeah, once again, I hope you guys learned something. If you did, please leave me a comment down below. If you have any questions, like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next video. We're going to keep rocking on this space. We got more videos to come.